Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous, episode number 188.
Our Zavian Hauser joins us today, and our Zavian is a professional horror fiction and nonfiction author from the New England states, but he's also one heck of a deer hunter. And over the years, he's collected a lot of information, and he's just published it, both in eBook and hardbound, called The Deer Truth. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin, and we're heading to New England today, and our Zavian Hauser, author of The Deer Truth, joins us today. Our Zavian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Well, it's been, 6-8 months since you last were on the show, and at that time, The Deer Truth was just coming out. So let's jump right into it and tell the folks what The Deer Truth is about, how they can get it, and what you've learned so far since it's been released.
All right, great. The Deer Truth officially was released in ebook format on the 12th of October. It was about 12 days late, publishers and all the other aspects of editing and things that they went through. And we saw the hardcover reach bookstores and internet sales on December 20th. I believe that they opened it up for early ordering so people could pre-order it. And I want to say they sold a couple hundred copies of that as soon as it opened up for sale, which was really nice, right before Christmas. People started receiving the books around Christmas. It's available through mascotbooks.com just by going to the key search or title search for The Deer Truth. Or it can be Googled, The Deer Truth by our Zavian Hauser, and there's an astounding number of places carrying it, from Barnes & Noble to Books A Million. Amazon.com carries both the ebook and the hardcover. The retail price of the hardcover book, which includes full-color images throughout the book, detailed maps and descriptions, where to look for deer, how to set up for deer, all the true and tried, proven tactics and tips, no gimmicks and no come-ons anywhere in the book. And that retails for $24.95 US. And there's also a limited number of autographed versions. There was 100 copies shipped to me to sign. I signed those and shipped them back. And that copy retails for $34.95, and quite a few people have obtained that. And of course, if I see people that have the book, I'll randomly sign it. It won't be part of that limited signature edition that's numbered, but it's still kind of cool to have the signature of the author in your book. So,
heck yeah.
Absolutely. And
agreed.
I'm happy to do so, But
how would they do that? How would they do that? Buy the book and then ship it to you? You ship it back?
Well, if somebody wanted to do that, they could contact me, via Facebook under our Zavian Hauser, or The Deer Truth, or Red Zone Scent Racer, or Darkness Dwells. I've got a whole slew of pages there on Facebook, that I monitor and run through the books and the business.
Now, you also are an author, right? About scary movies. I don't know exactly.
Yes,
horror fiction, nonfiction author.
Yes, I'm also a nonfiction author. Like I said, I did The Deer Truth, which is nonfiction. I also do horror fiction. Pretty much, I'm pretty unlimited on the topics and stories that I can create. But horror fiction is a huge genre and has a big following, and I'm very creative. And you take your creative mind and apply it to horror, and especially when you use tangible locations and, like street names and, areas that people can actually drive down. That tends to have a great reach. And, just real quick, the story of Darkness Dwells hovers around and is centered on the Hoosick Tunnel, or Hoosick Tunnel, however you want to pronounce it, down in North Adams, Massachusetts, that actually runs through the mountain, right underneath Florida Mountain, and comes out in Monroe on the other side at the head of the Deerfield River. And that tunnel's been surrounded by ghost stories and, all kinds of situations since its inception back in the, late 1700s, 1800s. So I've got a lot of historical, facts touching in there. I've got some realistic locations in there. So that book tends to reach right into the spine of people from that area and, get a real reaction out of them as far as a genuine interest. So,
wow.
I'm sorry.
That's good. Yeah, I was going to say, wow, that's interesting stuff, how you take real places and then spin your story, and then people can
relate to it.
See themselves going down those streets or knowing that mountain. Let's spin it up and let's talk about the book. In your bio, it says, this novel focuses totally on public lands that are subject to massive pressure by hunters season to season. And it also says that the secrets that the industry has kept under lock and key for decades. So let's unpack that a little bit.
Okay. Well, without giving out the the exact information over the recording, what I can say about it, the industry has, like any industry, the gun industry doesn't send out how they bore their barrels and what temperatures they heat their steel to and all that good stuff. If they did, then we'd all be at the machine shop making our own Remington rifles. And some people do, but basically, what I wanted to reveal, to hunters, my fellow hunters, and everybody out there that hunts or takes to the woods or whatever, my brother and sister in my eyes. And, it's not a competition in my book. I'm not out there to compete against someone. Somebody happens to go along and hunt an area that I'm hunting, and, I'll move out of there and let them have it. And I hope they do well in there. I'm not going to go back in and chop their tree stand down and steal the cameras and, kick their car on their way out, which I've had done to me many times, but, that all comes down to the individual. So my point, my goal was to reveal, the true aspects of hunting, the true nature of locating deer consistently, being able to just stop the car in an area you're interested in, get in the woods, walk the area, and identify and locate the deer. Not just driving along, this happens. A lot of people have done this. You're going along, and you've been seeing the spot on your way to work, this hill, the sun's on it just right. You think, oh, wow, that looks like a good place. Got a bunch of pine trees or spruce or hemlock or something on it. They pull over, they go in there. And because that area looks like some area they saw on a hunting show on television or the internet, they immediately think, well, this is it. Yeah, this is where such and such took that big giant buck. Use this call and this scent and this and that, so on and so forth. And some of these people will go year after year after year in these areas that are dead ends, never have deer in them, or if they do very occasionally, maybe a running doe or two that pass through there, they're not seeing the deer the way they should be seeing deer, and they're not seeing them in those locations. And yet these people continue to repeat this behavior season after season. I can't tell you, I worked in the archery department of a sporting goods shop in my teenage, middle school and high school years. And the stories, people come in and, same thing. I haven't seen anything. There's nothing out there, blah, blah, blah. Granted, there is definitely a depleted deer herd in this area overall, but there are areas that do hold very healthy and abundant populations of deer. And if you know how to recognize their signs and their travel routes and all the different things they feed on, then, you're able to capitalize on that. And even if you're not harvesting more deer because you choose to let them pass by, you're going to see deer. And that's my point. When I go to the woods, I want to at least see deer every day. I don't want to go sit in the woods and just stare at trees and sticks and even bushes and listen to birds and squirrels. I want to see deer. I want to study the deer's behavior. I want to know if I was right about what direction they're traveling from. And, and I want to learn all the aspects of the whitetail deer, the whys, the whats, the whens, and the wheres. Because once you establish those things, you can go to the woods. You can be successful. And successful, like I said, not being measured just by drawing blood and the kill and all that, I'm talking about successful is being a deer hunter or a deer watcher, just by going to the woods every day, being able to be where the deer are and be undetected by the deer as well. So one of the key things that I point out in the book is a major myth and a misinformation that's been taught and driven into the minds of hunters for, centuries, since the hunting began, and especially when it began to become or morph into a business aspect. Any outfitter you go to, okay? And I'm friends with some outfitters. I'm not a big fan of anyone hunting inside of a fence, but, and like I say, I can't even call it hunting, but I will, just because I don't want to offend anyone. Whether you hunt in a fence or outside of the fence, you're still a hunter if you put on the clothes and you carry the gun and the bow. Then you're a hunter, period. So then what happens, you've got this aspect of, the outfitters and stuff, they're telling everyone and people teaching people, starting out in the sport that you want to set up, downwind and, you don't want the wind blowing across the deer trail or to the deer from your position. And that's a huge lie. One of the key factors is being scent free. Being able to minimize your human scent, and that doesn't mean, human scent being, soda or that kind of stuff. Human scent being that natural scent that human beings produce on their body from the bacteria that's replicating itself on your skin and your hair and in the natural oils of your body over and over and over. That's the scent and your breath that terrify animals in the woods, deer, bear, coyotes, other things that can smell you. So, you want to mask all those things as best you can. Like I say in the book, I recommend chewing natural gums to cover the breath and using some products that are proven to destroy human odor. Like I say, for myself, we use our own product, Red Zone Scent Eraser. We spray ourselves and our deer down with that, spray our hair, our skin, boots, underclothes, our overclothes, and all of our gear to remove as much of the human scent that we may have left as possible. And we always set up with the wind blowing from us to where we expect to see the deer. Now, I'm going to hit on that because how many times, and I point this out in the book, how many times have you been out in the woods, you found the deer runs, you put the trail cameras out, you know what way the deer are traveling, yet you go there and you set up downwind, you probably made some noise going in, or, who knows what happened, or maybe something spooked the deer up above or down below. And when the deer come through, how is it that they manage to be behind you? Why aren't they in front of you? Downwind, you're downwind of them. How is it that they are able to come in behind you? Why does that happen so often? Like I say, one of those major things is a motion that the deer use, kind of like a candy cane or a jay or a hook, whatever you prefer to refer to it as. When a deer is traveling in the area, and most people, for some reason, tend to set up right where the apple tree is, or right where the cornfield is, or in some states where you can bait right where the bait is. In many cases, or over scrapes, that's a bad practice because you're expecting the deer to come from a certain way. You're probably moving around a little bit. You've been there all day if you're one of those people who can sit all day, which I think is important. When the deer comes in, especially bucks, they're not going to come straight down the run or the trail. They're going to come in, and let's say the wind is prevalent from the west. There's still going to be some tailwind or crosswinds, maybe southwest or northwest from that. So before a deer is going to come into an area and, venture, into the food or the scrape or whatever, he's going to want to smell everything. So he may make this J-hook or, circle that I'm talking about and end up behind you or, whatever, because he wants to smell everything first and, of course, look at the area and assess that he is safe to enter that area and detect any danger that might be there. So a common misconception is to set up with the wind blowing in your face. I think that's a huge mistake. And if the wind shifts when I'm out there and it continues, if I was set up with the wind behind me coming from the west and it shifts to the north, then I'm going to change my position if I can without being detected, because I want to see all of the deer or the majority of the deer that are going to travel through that area. And they're going to do so with that wind blowing from me to them. Just the way it is in our experiences.
Wow. Thanks for that insight. I'm sitting here taking notes. It's real easy to be quiet when you're hearing that type of insight. And I spoke to a guy yesterday from Hunt Fish Journal, Jerry Everhart, okay. And he hunts deer 360 degrees of a stand through his system, and you can go to Hunt Fish Journal and hear his system. But he says he doesn't worry about the wind. He worries the heck out of his scent, but he doesn't worry about the wind anymore. And let's spend a little bit more time and let's expand that a little bit, because that's a critical misnomer or lore, tradition in our industry.
What it actually boils down to, and I've actually had this discussion at seminars and trade shows with outfitters. The reason for that is it's not, for hunters it's a misconception. If you go to an outfitter or you watch a hunting show and that's how they tell you to set up, and then you take it with you and you teach your friends that stuff, then you're passing on a misconception. However, for the outfitter, it's not a misconception. Do you know the reason why they set you up that way with the wind in your face?
No.
That is to reduce the number of wounded animals on their hunt property. If they set you up so that you saw all the animals that were traveling around you, you may be enticed into shooting a further shot, shooting more animals than, whether you get them or not. So they do that so that the one animal who might come through the setup the way they have you set up is the only one you're going to see, the only one you're going to get a shot at. So that's generally what that's for. It's kind of a conservation practice, amongst outfitter groups and guides and those types of people. Now, I have a friend that's a guide, guides out in Maine and travels out west, to go for elk. He's a kind of a jack of all trades of the outdoors. He hunts exactly the way that I hunt, the way my grandpa taught me to hunt, with the wind blowing from my back to where I expect to see the deer. And, I might get one deer or two deer that come in behind me, but not a dozen or 15. The dozen or 15 deer are always in front of me. And what your friend was talking about, on the Hunt and Fish Journal, he's right on the money. I don't worry about the wind. I spray myself down, but I do know enough about the wind that I know how the deer travel when it comes to the wind. They always, when just normal traveling, they crisscross the wind. They walk into it on an angle. They never walk straight into it. The only time that I myself have ever witnessed deer traveling with the wind in the face is when they're alerted and spooked and they're on the run. They do like to know what's ahead.
Can you repeat that again? Because a lot of people don't understand that and don't believe that. But coming from this guy, I started deer hunting in 1966, and that's a lesson learned the hard way. But please reiterate that. Okay.
And I'll say in layman's terms. Basically, when you're set up for deer, if you can get an aerial view, when there's just a little snow on the ground, get up in a tree and look around the area and look at how the deer trails traverse the country. Follow them around, pay attention to the wind. When you're out in the woods and you're seeing deer, check the weather, see where the wind was coming from. You're going to see the deer always, when normal traveling, just walking from, bedding to feeding or feeding to bedding or whatever point they're traveling for whatever reason, then you'll notice that they always cut the wind. They always cross it. They're never walking straight into it, straight away from it, or straight across it. They're always walking through the wind on an angle. So if the wind is coming from the west, the deer is most likely going to be traveling in a southwest or a northwest angle as they cut it. Like most of our deer runs here, in New England, the way our mountains are facing, most of our mountains tend to face north to south. The deer trails tend to run east and west. So, from the sun to the moon, back and forth. So along the ridges, but they do cut on an angle. So we have a prevalent west wind. Our deer trails will run southwest to northeast. They'll cut that wind on an angle. And like I say, the reason for that is what the deer can't see or hear, they can smell. And the only time that I've ever seen a deer travel directly into the wind, and I mean straight into it, is when they've been spooked, jumped, or being pursued by something. So they can smell ahead of any danger. And, a lot of people don't grasp the deer smell in parts per million. People just don't get it. A good way to explain that to someone, which we would do at a seminar, is take a dog biscuit, put it in a Ziploc bag, and put it in your pocket. Even if I spray that bag, now I'm talking about a plastic bag, even if I spray that bag with a scent elimination product of any kind, a dog can locate that biscuit inside the pocket of my jacket because they smell in parts per million so strong, depending on the dog breed. The one in particular I'm talking about right now is German Shepherd. They could smell that dog biscuit through just about anything other than being wrapped in tinfoil and coffee grounds like the drug traffickers do, with their products to avoid the police. So and it's the same thing with hunting. If you can't eliminate your scent completely, then, it's best to, use the wind to your advantage if you're that type of hunter, or get high enough in a tree or, whatever to do that. But like I said, I prefer to do it really simple. I'd rather work smarter than harder, and I like to spray myself down with red zone and eliminate any scent that's in my body. And if something happens and I do happen to have some human scent, like I broke out a sweat or whatever, I carry an extra bottle right in my bag, small one, that I can just, do some touch-up spray. So basically, you're not going to eliminate human odor 100%. But if you knock it down enough so there's not enough particles of it floating through the air, then, you're not going to alert deer and other game animals to your presence. And the thing about the breath is huge. Now, in the last few years, we've been using, I always use real doe and heat urine that I collect from nature myself, and that's in the book as well, and how to do it, how to locate it, how to identify it. And we heat it up. We use body heaters, and we put them around the container and heat that stuff up, and then open the container, and then you've got this hot, fresh smell pouring through the woods, and when a deer hits that path, he comes right down. And now a good way to look at that is anybody ever blowing bubbles, a bubble machine or whatever, a kid with a stick and the wand, and blow the bubbles and watch the bubbles travel through the wind. That's kind of like imagining that's a giant scent molecule and how it travels. And imagine that scent molecule being, full strength up to about 100 yards. You're going to spook things. There's going to be deer that you're not even going to see. You'll never even know they were there. They may not blow. They may not scent their feet. They may just come in, hit that scent, and just stop and go right back the way they came and avoid that area completely. And then you'll think, oh, there's no deer here. When actually there are deer there. They just smelled you in your presence, and they made themselves non-existent while you were there.
Thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that. And one visual aid that I use is 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock, 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock, or any variation thereof. And That's an angle. So when you're in the woods, take your compass and look at your 40, 60, wherever you're hunting, that.
Right.
So just take a compass and see the deviation from north and south.
Yep.
And when you do that, you're going to be amazed. You go, I never really thought about it. And that's the thing that Whitetail Rendezvous is doing. We're bringing content, but we're talking to real people that have concepts, and they're proven. And thank you so much for that, because that's a wonderful thing. And as soon as you understand that, you will become a better hunter. Period.
Let me add one thing to that too. And a lot of people don't carry compasses and other devices. There's a very simple tool that you can use, which I have. And if you look at any of my videos on Facebook, especially the one where I have the 8-pointer that I let walk by this season on video, this past season, you'll see a piece of thread on my bow in the wind, and you'll see that the wind is blowing directly at that deer, who was clueless there was a human sitting there at the base of the tree, 10 yards away. I use that small trick, just a real thin fiber attached to a stabilizer or the limb or your sight or whatever, that can give you constant acknowledgement of the wind and how the deer are traveling. And if you notice, that string is like at a 45-degree angle across my body, and that buck is walking straight in front of me. That's because I was set up perfectly for those conditions with that, with that prevalent wind traveling the way it was. He was crossing that wind perfectly, and he surveyed that entire area before he went to the pond and got a drink. So, it was hunting warm weather. We had horribly warm weather last year, and water became more important than food sources because the food was everywhere. So, and that's another big thing. People just hunting. Everybody wants to know what a bedding area is and a feeding area. And, bedding area, there is no such thing, in my opinion, as a defined bedding area. Deer can bed down anywhere that daylight finds them and they feel safe. And if it's an area that they feel safe in over and over, then, maybe that becomes what you would think of as a bedding area. But the minute they start getting some pressure, they're out of there. Gone. That's no longer a bedding area. That's now an area to avoid, and they're in a new area. So, like I said, the book covers every aspect of where the hell did the deer go during deer season. It covers how to find them all year round, but it especially covers where are those deer while all the pumpkins are running around the woods, blasting away with shotguns, yelling and hollering and doing all the other things they do. When they're still on the ground, you see their tracks still, and they still go through those areas where the hunters were during the day. But where are they spending their daytime activity? And that is the most important secret once the hunter learns where his local deer herd spends their daytime, and then he learns how to access it without spooking those deer, and sometimes it does require you to get in there at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we've all done it. But that's a sacrifice we make. I go to bed at 6 o'clock at night, and I get up at midnight and get my deer together, and I'm out the door at 2:30, so I can make a nice, easy half-an-hour walk into that area, which sometimes is only really 5 minutes off the road. These deer are bedding where they can see the parking lot and the cars driving by. So if humans start pulling over and getting out, they can pack up and head out safely. Those are your survivors, and those are the deer that I hunt. I particularly hunt the survivors because I like to see deer. Granted, I don't shoot every deer I see, obviously, but I do see deer almost every day, and that was my goal in my career of hunting, and an aspiration I had as a kid, hunting Woodford Mountain and the Green Mountains of Vermont. My grandfather was maybe like 15 deer in that on 100,000 acres. I wanted to see those 15 deer every day, and eventually I evolved into that type of caliber of hunter that was able to make that happen and harvest the deer.
Thanks so much for that.
Trophy buck. Year after year consistently.
We're coming up to our stop, our hard stop, and
okay.
One thing, if you've ever hunted grouse or ducks, there's down. And what I learned, I took a piece of string to my bow or my rifle,
right.
and I take the smallest feather I can get and still tie it on. And I keep spares, in a little vial, because any breath of wind at all, I can see it. See, sometimes when the light gets low, I can't see that string, but I can see that piece of down.
Yeah, that's correct. With the fibers I use poly fiber that runs anywhere from 8 to 12 inches long, and it's brightly colored or white. I actually can detect thermals with that fiber. So as the temperature's coming up, I can actually see that thing floating up in the air and dropping back down. You can learn a lot of things, and like I say, the big thing is if you're where the deer are, you can learn why the deer are doing these things, which I reveal in the book. Everything about deer hunting. If you were to be, let's just say, Bruce, that you never hunted in your life and you were going to start this year, you would want to get the deer truth. And I'm telling you not just to sell this product. It's not a marketing ploy. I'm telling you the reviews I've gotten from my friends that are veteran hunters and people I don't even know that are veteran hunters who have read my book, they all said, wow, if I had this book before I started hunting, I could go back and probably have a lot more deer in my freezer. I would have seen a lot more deer. And that
thank you so much. Yeah, we got to wind it up because we're hitting our hard stop here. But Thank you so much for being part of our show, being part of the Whitetail Rendezvous community. And please just take 30 seconds to give a shout out to whomever you wish.
Sure. Well, I'd love to give a shout out to Mike Grandstaff, the whitetail stalker, of course. He's a co-author. He did a chapter in the book on stalking whitetail deer and his passion behind it. Nicholas Glorioso from Glorioso Wildlife Mounts Taxidermy in Granville, New York. He also contributed a chapter near the end of the book on proper care and preparation of your trophy once you've harvested it, so you don't lose it and you get it to the taxidermist. Of course, my great friends in New Jersey, they hunt with me every year, and Peter Watley in Sussex, and Bill and Mark McPherson down at Cape May, great guys. They're all part of my tight inner circle, and we share hunts together, and season after season. So one thing I wanted to say too before we ended this thing, some things about the outdoor industry that I think we could all do better, or everybody could do better, is getting women and kids more involved, whether it's hunting or just being out there to take photos or spending time in nature. Start them out young in education. Educating people at a young age, and even your friends' kids, even if they're anti-hunters, educate them about guns and gun ownership and gun handling, firearms and stuff. So many people out there that talk anti-everything. They're just uneducated. They really are. They think that steaks and hamburgers and things in the store were born in that package. They don't realize the horrible things that those things go through to get to that package. So the fact that we hunt and we hunt ethically and we respect the game. We put the time in and the effort, and we're one with nature when we're out there, and that's something we love to do. We're passionate about it, and that we're directly responsible for the fact that there are still game animals and birds out there to hunt, because hunters are the number one conservationists who have set up and fund all of these conservation programs that are all around the world. Now, there isn't a single anti-hunting group that funds or donates any money to any type of conservation program, whether it be fish stocking or animal relocation or any of that. So I think it's important that we all rather than, bashing the anti-hunters and swearing at them and, trying to run them off the road, the things that I read about. I think we're better off to try to sit down and talk to these people rationally and educate them. I have turned quite a few people around. They're not going to hunt, but they accept it, and they actually gained access to some properties that way long ago to access some hunting areas by educating those people as to what I was actually doing.
So again, thank you so much for being a guest. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, The Deer Truth. You can find it. Just Google it. You'll find it. You can look on Facebook. There's a lot of sources. So take a look at that and learn some of the tips and techniques that we just shared. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, the book was available at mascotbooks.com, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and just about anywhere that you can Google The Deer Truth.
On tomorrow's show, you're going to hear from the founder and owner, president of Wicked Tree Gear, Todd Pringnitz. Todd hails from Iowa, and he's been hunting big deer for a long time. You're going to love his run and gun techniques that you can implement in 2016.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.
Remember to text 33444 Food Plot for your free ebook